Morning everybody, how are y'all doing today? I'll be honest, I could be better because honestly, Thursdays are not very fun for me. And now on top of my usual Thursday schedule, I have to talk about MBG. Truly a fate worse than death. Nah, but in all seriousness, if you somehow haven't heard by now, Sony is planning on acquiring Kadokawa. And I had never even heard of Kadokawa before this acquisition was announced. They basically own a bunch of anime companies like Crunchyroll, and they also own FromSoftware. Now, that was interesting to me because I thought Bandai Namco owned FromSoft, but I guess they're just the publisher. And basically, Sony is looking to acquire Kadokawa, and the reaction to this has been pretty negative across the board. Now, there's two sides to it, because on the anime side, if Sony gets Kadokawa, they would basically have a monopoly over Western anime. And on the gaming side, they would get FromSoftware, which many people, including myself, would not be cool with. Not just because of, oh, what if Elden Ring 2 is exclusive to PlayStation or whatever, but also From is doing fantastic right now as it stands. It's not like they're in need of saving. If Sony were to buy Kadokawa and own FromSoft, but then not really do much, and just kind of let them cook on their own, then that would be fine. But somehow, I doubt that's gonna happen. And MBG, as expected, had some very interesting thoughts about this whole situation, especially when it comes to the potential exclusivity of future FromSoft games. And of course, since I'm starving for salt right now, I am happily going to take this opportunity. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get right into this.
So when you look at an acquisition like this, it's not necessarily that it would be good for the industry or bad for the industry. It really would depend on what they do with FromSoftware, I'm going to be honest with you. When it comes to the wider acquisition of Kadokawa, that's just pure for Sony. You know, like Sony wants to have a monopoly in the anime sector, and this would essentially allow them to do that. I don't know if they're going to be allowed to get away with that, but that's what they're aiming for.
I think I speak for a lot of people out there when I say I hope they're not allowed to do this. Because, you know, last year we had people saying, oh, if Microsoft buys Activision, it would be a monopoly, and in reality, they wouldn't even own, like, what was it, 20% or something like that of the gaming industry. But if Sony gets Kadokawa, they will literally have a monopoly on Western anime. Like, that's not good for anybody. Plus, I don't want any of these corporations having their hands on Elden Ring 2. It's like the old expression, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. If it ain't failing, don't buy it out. That's not to say that, like, Activision was failing when Microsoft bought them, but their stock dropped significantly, and they were in a lot of controversy. An example of a company that probably should get bought out at this point is Ubisoft. They have just had miss after miss after miss for the last several years. When was the last time they turned a profit on something? I'm actually trying to remember. Maybe Assassin's Creed Mirage? Then again, I honestly would not be upset if Ubisoft just closed down and nobody bought them out, because, like, let's be honest, they're terrible. They have arguably the worst anti-consumer practices out there. I mean, what company besides Ubisoft have you seen threaten to take away your games if you don't log into your account? All right, we gotta move on. I'm getting off topic.
And everything that they get from the gaming side of Kadokawa is basically just a bonus. It's basically the icing on the cake. Some really good icing at that. But yeah, it's like, would it be bad for the industry if Sony acquired FromSoftware and made Elden Ring 2 exclusive to PlayStation? I mean, you tell me, right? I mean, from my perspective, no. I don't see that as a bad thing, just because it's like, well...
Oh, sure, Sony buying out FromSoft and keeping the next Elden Ring or Dark Souls or whatever off of Xbox wouldn't be a bad thing, sure, man. Can we keep the same energy from the Xbox Activision acquisition? I have said the whole time, if Xbox were to make COD exclusive to Xbox and PC, that would be a very bad thing. And it's so funny that he's just like, oh, you know, this isn't a problem whatsoever. When, if we go back to when Microsoft won in their FTC case, I spent like 20 minutes looking for this tweet, by the way. Straight from MBG's mouth, Microsoft wins, not by producing great industry-defining games from their own studios, but by buying the publishers who have already done so. Publishers or developers who have produced industry-defining games. Who does that sound like? Oh yeah, that's right, FromSoft. But when Sony wants to buy them, potentially keep the next Dark Souls or whatever off of Xbox, totally fine. But we're gonna sit here and have a meltdown on Twitter when Xbox is able to buy out somebody. Say it with me, kids. Keep that same energy. Extra points if you clapped along with me, and even more extra points if you used your butt cheeks to do it.
Yeah, certain Xbox players won't be able to play it, but I'm not playing on Xbox, you know? So it's like, well, I don't know, man. Sony likes to do exclusivity. would it be? It would. I'll tell you this. It would be bad for the potential reach of Elden Ring 2. But you could kind of see how Sony would want to be like, well, we could use this to sell consoles.
I can personally guarantee you right now, the number of consoles they sell, along with copies of the games sold on those newly bought consoles, will not even come close to the amount that they could make if they just made Elden Ring 2 multiplat. Xbox doesn't make up a majority of FromSoft game sales, but you know what does? PC. If Sony were to skip PC day one on Elden Ring 2, I guarantee the sales would be cataclysmically lower. Because guess what? Elden Ring sold the most copies on PC. And will some PC guys already have a PS5 and just play the game on there or go and buy a PS5? Sure. But I guarantee that is not the majority. As much as I love Elden Ring, you will not catch me dropping $500 on a console just to play it. Also, he said it's not bad for the industry because he's on PlayStation, so it doesn't affect him. Just because you're on the platform that's gonna keep the game doesn't mean that the move isn't bad for the industry. Like, imagine if the water shut down everywhere across my school, except for in my building, and then I said, oh, well, this isn't bad for the school because I still have water. Like, no, that's still a bad thing. Plus, something I just thought about, FromSoft are some of the last base developers who still only charge $60 for their games. If Sony acquires them, you know damn well Elden Ring 2 is about to go up to $70. So yes, this does still affect you, no matter how much you want to deny it.
I don't know. I mean, it would be a very strategic move in that acquiring Kadokawa and then getting FromSoftware, maybe it would be better to do something like, listen, if they do Elden Ring 2, make it multiplat. Make Elden Ring 2 multiplat. But then we're going to do Bloodborne 2, and we're going to make that exclusive. I think, there you go. The best of both worlds. You don't strip away a game that was already out there for everybody, and you continue to let everybody play it and partake in it. And then you give PlayStation players and your console an exclusive that, I think people will be like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. Bloodborne 1 was an exclusive.
I mean, if somehow Bloodborne 2 ever becomes a thing, which, considering we don't even have a remaster for PC yet, somehow I doubt that. But yeah, if it somehow does become a thing, I wouldn't expect that to go to Xbox. I would hope it would, but I mean, like you said, the first one was only on PlayStation, so I'm not expecting the second one to also go to Xbox, but I would expect them to go on PC, if not day and date, like a year later. But guess what? If Bloodborne 2 did end up on PC and Xbox day and date, that would not be a bad thing. Although, again, considering Sony owns the Bloodborne IP, I do not see that happening. Then again, they own Horizon, and the Lego game ended up on the Switch and PC day and date, so who knows? And yes, Elden Ring 2 should absolutely be multiplat, especially if they want it to sell as well as the first Elden Ring. Very rarely do you get a game hitting 25 million sales on a single platform, unless it's like a Nintendo game. Or, it's an already very well-established IP like Spider-Man. Even then, I don't even think that hit 25 million.
Bloodborne is still like completely exclusive to PlayStation 4, which is crazy to think. So I think if they were to like do something like that, it would make a lot of sense. But I don't know. I think Sony wants to go. I could be wrong, but I don't. I think Sony, to be honest, if they do get complete control over FromSoftware, they're going to rip every game off of Xbox. At the very least, I don't know what they'll do with Switch 2. But Sony, I think, has made it crystal clear that they don't want to put shit on Xbox unless they're like held at gunpoint,
I'm telling you right now, Elden Ring 2 is not going to the Switch 2 unless that thing is a beast. But yeah, unfortunately, you're probably right. If they do get control of FromSoft, which again, I don't entirely think will happen because this acquisition would give them a monopoly over Western anime. But if they are able to get control of them, unfortunately, you're probably right. They probably will just rip all the future FromSoft games off of Xbox. I mean, I'm on PC and I'm not super worried about the games being taken away. I say taken away. They're not going to take away games that are already here. But you know what I mean. I'm not worried about missing out on the future FromSoft titles. I don't think Sony's that stupid. But I fail to see how Sony taking away future Souls games from Xbox is a good thing. You said earlier this would not be bad for the industry. Taking away games that would have been on other platforms previously, but now they're not because they bought out a studio is a bad thing. Like Redfall, as awful as that game was, it still sucks that they canceled the PlayStation port after Microsoft bought them. I can't remember, did Starfield have a PlayStation port in the works as well? I'm assuming assuming so. It sucks that the game didn't go to PlayStation. That's why I was saying during the Activision acquisition, this will be a good thing if they keep the game's multiplat. And thankfully, it seems like the law is holding Microsoft's feet to the fire when it comes to no exclusivity, at least with Activision. And I guess also the next Doom game is coming to PS5, so that's great as well. The point is, yes, having Elden Ring 1 be on Xbox, but Elden Ring 2 be taken away, that would suck. I say this as somebody who doesn't even own an Xbox.
And if they happen to be able to, if at the end of the day, if this deal does go through, if Sony can decide, like, we are going, like, they're going to do Elden Ring 2, and we're either going to put it on Xbox or we're not, I think they say no. I think they say no. And I get it. Like, some people might be like, well, that's kind of messed up. You know, Microsoft isn't really doing that to Sony. It's like, yeah, but I don't think Sony cares, dude. Like, Sony won't even put a Lego game on Xbox. So there won't be a Bloodborne 2. There could be. There could be. I'm telling you, man, Miyazaki, he's made it clear he loved working on Bloodborne, bro. That was his favorite game. That was his favorite game.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, Miyazaki also said he would love to do a PC port of Bloodborne, but he can't. And he didn't say it directly, but he strongly implied it was something to do with From's relationship with Sony. So, who knows? If this acquisition is required for Bloodborne PC to happen, then I can't believe I'm about to say this, but I would rather the acquisition not go through. Hasn't Bloodborne been, like, fully emulated on PC at this point? Who knows? Might be time to bust out the old emulator. Then again, if Bloodborne PC does get announced, that might also cause a bust to occur.
You think that's a delusional take? I don't think so, man. I don't think it's delusional to think that Sony would want to go exclusive with their games. The reason why I say that is because, well, Sony's main priority here in the gaming sector anyway is to still sell consoles. And I'm going to be honest, man, you look at the type of pull like the next main FromSoftware game could have. Holy shit. Yeah, I don't know. That sounds like a console seller to me.
No, it's not delusional to think that they would want to make the next FromSoft game exclusive. I think anybody could see that coming. It would still suck, but at the same time, it probably wouldn't surprise me that much. What's delusional is you saying that that would be a good thing. And what's even more delusional is thinking that their primary goal is still selling consoles. Yes, obviously selling consoles is one of their main goals, but software is what makes the real money at the end of the day. Why do you think they've been doing so many more PC ports recently? And why do you think the PC ports have been getting closer to day and date? Spider-Man 2 is coming to PC just over a year after it came out for PlayStation. It took the first Spider-Man game 4 years to come over. Horizon Remastered and Until Dawn Remastered were both day and date on PC, which confuses me even more and makes me wonder even more why The Last of Us 2 Remastered wasn't on PC, but whatever. Not like I'm gonna play it if it does come over. Speaking of The Last of Us, the remake of the first game, what did that take, like 6 months to come to PC? Plus, don't forget what Sony said during the Activision acquisition. PlayStation as a brand would not survive without Call of Duty. Selling consoles is nice, but if you're not selling software, you quite literally cannot keep your business going. Hell, don't they use COD microtransaction money to fund their first-party games? I'm telling you right now, Wolverine, I don't know for sure if it's going to be day and date, but that game is coming to PC within a year. The point is, if their primary goal was still to sell consoles, they would not be giving PC so much focus. Especially, you know, now they've put out the PlayStation overlay for PC so you can get trophies. But yeah, please tell me how consoles are still their main priority.
But maybe they would do PC. I could see them, you know, doing PC. But I don't know about this idea of you know, any studio that Sony acquires. I think that they want to try to leverage them to produce content that will move their consoles. I don't know, unless FromSoftware is making a live service game. I don't know what that would look like, but
please, for the love of God, no. We do not need FromSoft making anything except Armored Core and Dark Souls games. Also, does anybody see the irony in him saying that any studio they acquire, they're gonna want to use to leverage their own console? When one of their acquisitions was Nix's, which is entirely dedicated to PC ports. And on top of that, they didn't acquire this studio, but, you know, they had Arrowhead make Helldivers 2. Guess what? Helldivers 2 came to PC day and date and sold best on PC. Oh, of course, we can't can't forget about Firewalk. You know, they released Concord day and date on PC. And I swear to God, if Concord moved a single PlayStation unit, like if one person out there said, you know what, I'm gonna buy a PS5 to play Concord, I will eat a burger with sauce on it. You might think that's not that bad, but that's like the final boss of foods for me.
Yeah, they could do that. Elden Ring 2, still going to Xbox, but just no Game Pass. Yeah, I could see that. I don't know, man. We don't know the scope of this in terms of like what Sony would really want to do. Look, I think when it comes to the anime and manga side of this conversation, it's very obvious what Sony wants to do. They just want to own it. They already own a lot in the anime and manga sector. They want to own as much as they possibly can. They want to have a monopoly on it. They want to have complete control. So that, I think, is obvious.
And you're just completely okay with that. Look, I'm not saying you have to throw a hissy fit about something if you don't really care about it. But come on, let's not act like monopolies are a good thing. The board game is pretty good, definitely better than Clue. But a business monopoly, not so good. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and skip this next little bit. He doesn't really say anything for about 30 seconds or so. And at this point, I'm just trying to get through this clip, because dear God.
We know Marathon's going to be on Xbox. Marathon's going to be on Xbox because, well, it was announced from day one with the acquisition. This is going to be an Xbox game too. Do we think the next Bungie product after that is also going to be on Xbox? Because I'm thinking no. I'm thinking the only reason Sony let that happen was because it was part of Bungie's terms to be acquired. But Bungie has been... They haven't been dissolved. They're still massive, but they've been greatly, greatly reduced. And that's because Sony was like, yeah, we're going to have to take over now.
I mean, will the next Bungie game after Marathon be on Xbox? Probably not, I'm imagining. But at the same time, that doesn't mean it shouldn't be, you know? Tell me, MBG, is it a good thing that Bungie's next game might not be on Xbox because Sony bought them? Which, I mean, you know, that's implying that there will be another Bungie game after Marathon, which, considering how Destiny 2 is going right now, and just how Bungie as a whole is right now, I don't know if that's happening. I was talking a lot about Ubisoft earlier. Ubisoft feels like they're kind of in the same ballpark as Bungie, where it's like, hey, let's just be as awful as possible to our consumers and pretty much put out nothing good. But even when we do, it doesn't do very well. Because, I mean, Final Shape, from what I heard, was good, but I know it didn't sell particularly well. Granted, Ubisoft is still worse than Bungie when it comes to all that. But yeah, it's going to take a major turnaround for them to get back on their feet. But if they are going to make another game after Marathon, I do think it should be on Xbox, even though it probably won't be. But who knows, maybe that's some crazy nuclear take. But yeah, with all that being said, that brings us to the end of this video. Thank you so much if you made it to the end. It feels really good to actually have stuff to talk about. I feel like I say this every time I've made a video in the last couple weeks, but it has been very dry recently. And I don't know, even though the fanboy videos are kind of the same stuff over and over again, it still felt refreshing to actually get a new topic. And I guess I'll just end by asking, what do you think about the Sony acquisition of Kadokawa? Do you think it's a good thing? Do you think it's a bad thing? What do you think will happen to FromSoft? Do you even think that the acquisition will go through at all? Because I'm skeptical, honestly. Ultimately, we shall see. But anyway, with all that being said, thank you all so much for watching. Like the video if you liked it, dislike it if you didn't like it, subscribe if you want to see more. Join us every Tuesday at 8 p.m. for gaming streams, and every Friday night at 9 p.m. Eastern for Salt streams. And I will catch you all next time.